The conference room smells like vanilla air freshener and something underneath it. Industrial cleaner, maybe fear. I walk in at 2 o'clock to find my husband Mark, my sister Karen, my brother Todd, and a woman in a lavender cardigan mid-conversation around a table spread with brochures. They freeze. Mark stands halfway, his chair scraping tile. "We weren't expecting you until 4, he says, and his voice has that careful tone he uses when he thinks I'm fragile. "I know," I say. "That's why I'm here at 2. I step aside and Lena walks in behind me, 30-something and sharp in a gray suit, setting her briefcase on the table with a sound like a gavel. The woman in lavender glances at the briefcase, then at Mark. Nobody breathes. 3 hours earlier, I was in my office, the converted garage behind our house, still smelling faintly of motor oil under the scent of dry erase markers. My mediation practice isn't fancy, but it's mine. Whiteboards cover 2 walls covered in diagrams from last week's neighborhood dispute about a fence line. My phone rang while I was erasing someone's angry red arrow. "It's Simone," the voice said, tight and young. "I screwed up. You're on the Ridgecrest Plaza email thread. You need to see this." Simone Park. I trained her 5 years ago when she was a terrified intern who couldn't look opposing counsel in the eye. Now she's a junior partner at Hartley Real Estate Group. I didn't ask questions on the phone, just said I'd be there in 20 minutes. I sat in my car outside her office building, phone hot in my hand, reading the email chain she'd forwarded. Subject line, Ridgecrest Plaza, sale terms final review. The strip mall my siblings and I inherited from our parents. 8 tenants, good location, solid income. Sale price, $1.8 million. Buyers, some healthcare investment group I'd never heard of. Mark's signature already on preliminary documents, neat and confident. And there, on page 4 of a PDF attachment, my signature on something called a cognitive assessment waiver. I've never seen that document before in my life. Simone met me in the lobby with printouts, her hands shaking. We sat in her car because she didn't want anyone in the office to see. "He approached us 2 months ago," she said. "Your husband. He said you'd agreed to the sale, that you couldn't handle big decisions anymore after the stroke. He had medical documentation, power of attorney forms, everything." Her voice cracked. "I should have called you. I should have verified. But he seemed so genuine." My hands were shaking too, but not from anger, from muscle memory. My left hand still remembers those 3 weeks after the stroke when it wouldn't quite obey me, when I'd reach for a coffee cup and my fingers would miss. 6 months ago. Minor ischemic event, the neurologist said. Full recovery expected. And I did recover, learned to write again, to type, to trust my body. But I still catch Mark watching my hands sometimes, like he's waiting for them to betray me. "It's not your fault," I told Simone, and I meant it. I folded the printouts and drove to Lena's office. Lena represented herself in a custody battle 4 years ago, mediated in the same garage office. Her ex-husband had a better lawyer, more money, and a narrative about her being unstable. I helped her find her voice, organize her evidence, stay calm when she wanted to scream. She won. When I called her that morning, she cleared her lunch. "What do you want?" she asked after I'd explained everything. "To stop the sale? To prosecute fraud? Because we can do both." I looked at the whiteboards in her office, covered in case notes for other people's disasters. "I want them to see me," I said. She nodded once. "Then let's make sure they do." I thought about the stroke while Lena made calls to set up this meeting. Not the stroke itself, that's just a blank spot, a moment of static where time skipped. But after. Mark bringing soup to the rehab room, his hands steady on the spoon when mine weren't. Mark crying in the hallway when he thought I couldn't hear, telling the nurse he couldn't lose me. That fear was real. I watched it hollow him out. But somewhere between then and now, that fear stopped being about me and became about control. Now I'm standing in this vanilla-scented room, and Mark is guiding me toward a chair with his hand on my elbow like I might fall. "Sweetheart, we can do this another time if you're tired." I don't sit. "I'm not tired," I say. "I'm listening. Start the presentation." The woman in lavender introduces herself, Gloria, facility director, and her voice has that rehearsed warmth of someone who's delivered this speech before. She clicks a remote and the screen behind her lights up with photos of hallways painted in soothing colors, residents smiling at crafts tables, memory care wing, 24-hour nursing, medication management. Each bullet point assumes I can't dress myself, can't remember my own name, can't function. I pull a notebook from my bag and take notes in the shorthand. I developed 20 years ago for union negotiations. Gloria talks about safety features, door alarms, GPS bracelets, secured outdoor spaces. I write it all down, my pen moving fast and neat across the page. Mark glances at my notebook and something flickers in his face. Confusion, maybe, or the first edge of understanding that this isn't going how he planned. Karen leans forward, her bracelet jangling. She fidgets with it when she's lying. I learned that during her divorce mediation, watching her try to hide assets from her ex. "We've been so worried," she says, and her eyes are wide with what might be genuine concern or might be performance. "Last month you forgot Todd's birthday." I don't look up from my notes. Todd's birthday is August 12th. Last month was October. I sent a card on the right day. You can ask him. Silence. Todd pulls out his phone, scrolls, and his ears go red. He says nothing. Gloria continues with financial planning, estate coordination, something she calls simplified decision-making. Lena interrupts, her voice polite and sharp as a blade. "Who requested this meeting?" Mark raises his hand slightly like a student. "I did." "And who initiated contact with Hartley Real Estate Group regarding the sale of Ridgecrest Plaza?" His jaw tightens. "That's a separate matter." "Is it?" I watch my siblings while Gloria tries to regain control of her presentation. Karen won't look at me, just keeps twisting that bracelet. Todd stares at the table, and I recognize shame when I see it. He's not convinced. He's complicit, but he's not convinced. Mark looks at me like I'm someone he used to know, someone he's mourning, even though I'm sitting right here. Gloria asks me questions from a list. "Do you know what day it is? Can you tell me who the current president is?" Her tone is gentle, the kind of gentle that makes you feel small. I answer each question flatly. Then I add, "I also know this facility's Medicaid rating dropped 2 stars last year, and that you're under investigation for staffing ratio violations. I looked it up this morning." Gloria's smile freezes. Lena slides a folder across the table, and it lands in front of Mark with a soft thud. "Cognitive assessments from 3 independent neurologists," she says, "all dated within the last 2 weeks, all confirming full executive function, intact memory, and normal decision-making capacity." Mark opens the folder. I watch the color drain from his face as he flips through pages of tests I took, puzzles I solved, interviews I sat through, with doctors who asked me to count backward from 100 and draw clocks and remember lists of words. His voice is barely there. "You've been planning this." I finally sit down. Not in the chair Mark indicated, but at the head of the table where Gloria left her remote and water glass. I move them aside carefully. "No," I say. "I've been living my life. You've been planning this." I allow myself the smallest edge of a smile. Apparently I wasn't invited. The meeting dissolves like sugar in water. Gloria excuses herself, gathering brochures with tight movements. Karen tries to hug me on her way out, and I step back, not far, just enough. "Not yet," I tell her. Todd lingers by the door, hands in his pockets. "I didn't know about the email thing," he says quietly. "Mark said you'd probably forget about the meeting anyway. That's why we scheduled it early." I don't answer. He leaves. Mark and I walk to our cars separately. Lena squeezes my shoulder and says she'll call tomorrow. I sit in my sedan in the parking lot for 10 minutes, hands on the wheel, not going anywhere. Then I drive. Ridgecrest Plaza sits off Highway 47, a small L-shaped strip of storefronts with a parking lot my father used to resurface himself every few years. I park in the spot where he used to park his truck every Saturday morning to collect rent checks in person, back when people paid in cash and handshakes. The strip mall looks good, fresh paint on the trim, new awning on the taqueria. The nail salon has a line of customers visible through the window. Miguel sees me from the doorway of his restaurant and waves. I get out of the car and he meets me halfway across the parking lot, wiping his hands on his apron. "Hey," he says, "the new heating unit is perfect. You were right about the model." We talk for a few minutes about his daughter's quinceañera next month, about whether the yoga studio might want to share the cost of updating the lot lights. Normal conversation, functional, present. He doesn't ask if I'm okay or if I need help or if I remember his name. He just talks to me like a person who co-owns his building and approved his HVAC upgrade last month. I sit on the bench outside the used bookstore after Miguel goes back to his kitchen. This bench was my mother's idea. She said people needed a place to rest between errands. I remember inheriting this property 5 years ago with Karen and Todd. The three of us sitting in a lawyer's office trying not to cry while someone explained disbursement terms. We made an agreement that day. Todd would manage the books and quarterly reports. Karen would handle tenant relations and lease renewals. I'd oversee maintenance, negotiate contracts, deal with problems. Mark would coordinate schedules and remind us of deadlines. Unofficial but trusted. It worked until it didn't. My phone buzzes. Text from Mark. We need to talk. Just us. I don't reply. Instead, I call Simone. She answers on the first ring. I need the full email chain, I tell her. Every message about the sale. She hesitates. That's client confidentiality. I could get... Mark isn't your client, the property is, and I'm still an owner. Silence. Then, I'll send it in 5 minutes. I read the emails in my car with the engine off and the late afternoon sun turning the windshield gold. The chain goes back 5 months, starting in June. Mark's first message to the real estate firm is dated June 8th, subject line, confidential inquiry. My partner had a stroke in May. Cognitive decline is likely based on family history. We need to liquidate shared assets while I still have financial authority to act in her best interest. Lies, stacked as carefully as legal briefs. Each email adds another layer, concerns about my memory, mentions of confused phone calls that never happened, a story about me getting lost driving to the grocery store. That one almost makes me laugh. I've driven to the same store for 15 years. I scroll to the bottom of the chain. The nursing home meeting was scheduled for today at 2 o'clock. The property sale was scheduled to close tomorrow at 9. They were going to present it to me as finished, a gift. We handled everything so you wouldn't have to worry. As if my autonomy were a burden, they were kind enough to lift. I drive home as the sun sets. Mark's car is already in the driveway. He's in the kitchen when I come in, making tea. 2 mugs, chamomile, honey already measured out. The ritual peace offering we've performed 100 times after arguments about small things. Dishes, schedules, whose turn to call the plumber. I was trying to protect you, he says before I can set down my bag. From what? From yourself. From forgetting to pay bills, from getting lost, from... He stops, teabag wrapper crinkling in his fist. From what, Mark? None of that has happened. He breaks. The wrapper falls and his hands shake and his voice cracks down the middle. It will happen. Your dad had dementia at 65, your mom at 62. I've watched you check the stove 3 times before bed every night. I've seen you write everything down because you don't trust your memory anymore. That's called being careful, I say, not incapacitated. But I see it now, the architecture of his fear. He was there when my parents declined, both of them, 18 months apart. He held me through those hospice nights, drove me to facilities, helped me sort their clothes after. He watched me lose them piece by piece, first their memories, then their words, then their eyes' recognition. That fear welded itself to love and became something else entirely, something that looks like care but functions like control. Did you ever ask me what I wanted? I keep my voice level. His silence answers. I pick up my bag and walk to the guest room, close the door, sit on the bed in the dark. Around midnight, I pull out a box from the closet, old case files from my mediation practice. I find the one I'm looking for. Morrison Family Contracting, 5 years ago. 3 siblings who'd inherited their father's construction business and stopped speaking to each other within 6 months. Each one convinced the others were stealing, sabotaging, plotting. They communicated only through lawyers until someone suggested mediation as a last resort before dissolution. I brokered peace by making them sit in a room and talk. No lawyers, no scripts, no prepared statements, just facilitated truth, ground rules, time limits, questions that forced them to see each other instead of their assumptions. I read my own notes in the dark, remembering how it worked, how the youngest brother finally admitted he felt invisible, how the sister confessed she was terrified of failing their father's legacy, how the oldest brother cried and said he just wanted his family back. The business still exists. I drove past it last year. Morrison and Sons, the sign says, and all 3 names are listed underneath. I text Karen and Todd, family meeting. Sunday, 10 a.m., my office, mandatory. Then I text Mark, you too. I lie awake after that, but I'm not planning a lawsuit. I'm not rehearsing a confrontation. I'm planning a conversation. The kind that might crack foundations, but also, maybe, build something honest underneath. Sunday morning arrives cold and clear. I'm in my office at 7:03. hours before anyone else will show up, rearranging furniture. The desk goes against the wall. 4 chairs form a circle in the center of the room, equidistant, none at the head because there is no head. Mediation style. I've done this 100 times for other people's families. Never my own. Coffee brews in the corner, the good stuff I save for difficult sessions. The whiteboards are wiped clean except for one word in the center of the largest board. Listen. I wrote it in blue marker, the color I use for ground rules. My hands are steady. I checked. Karen arrives first at 9:45. She's wearing a blazer I've never seen before, armor for whatever she thinks this will be. If this is an ambush, she starts, but I cut her off. It's a conversation. Sit. She looks at the chairs, at the lack of a table between them, and something in her face softens or hardens. I can't tell which. She sits. Todd comes at 9:50 carrying a travel mug and wearing his apologetic face, the one he's had since he was 12 and broke Mom's favorite lamp. He takes the chair across from Karen without being told. Mark arrives exactly at 10. His eyes are red-rimmed, his shirt wrinkled. He hasn't been sleeping, neither have I, but I'm better at hiding it. He starts to sit in the chair nearest the door, the escape seat I call it in my notes, but I shake my head and point to the one that completes the circle. He sits. I take the 4th chair. We're all facing each other now, nowhere to hide. Ground rules, I say, and my voice is calm, professional, the voice I use when someone's marriage is ending and they need help dividing the dishes without breaking them over each other's heads. One person speaks at a time, no interruptions, no phones. I look at each of them. We stay until we're finished. Karen scoffs, a sound like tearing paper. And if I want to leave? You can leave. But then you'll never understand what you did, and I'll never understand why you did it, and we'll spend the rest of our lives being strangers who share a last name. She doesn't leave. Nobody does. I begin with facts because facts are clean, provable, harder to argue with. 6 months ago, I had a minor stroke. Recovery was complete within 3 weeks. Full cognitive function restored, confirmed by 3 neurologists. I keep my eyes on the space between us, not on any face in particular. 3 months ago, Mark contacted Hartley Real Estate Group about selling Ridgecrest Plaza. He told them I'd agreed to the sale. He told them I couldn't handle complex decisions anymore. Todd shifts in his chair. I don't look at him. 2 months ago, he forged a document with my signature, a cognitive assessment waiver I never saw, never signed. Last week, he scheduled an intake meeting at an assisted living facility. The meeting was set for yesterday at 2 p.m. The property sale was scheduled to close this morning at 9. I let that sit for a moment. Karen's bracelet is silent. She's gripping it too hard to fidget. Here's what I need to understand. Now I look at Todd. When did Mark tell you I was declining? Todd's voice comes out small. July, maybe early August. He said you'd asked him to handle the property because you couldn't keep track of the details anymore. The tenant contracts, the maintenance schedules. He said you'd told him it was too much. Did you ask me? No. He looks at his hands. I thought if you'd asked him, you wouldn't want to admit it to us, that you'd be embarrassed. I nod slowly. Turn to Karen. And you? She takes a breath. He showed me a video. You were asking him to repeat something 3 or 4 times in a row, getting frustrated. He said it was happening more and more, that you were getting confused easily. Her voice gets smaller. He said the doctors told him it would progress quickly, that we needed to make arrangements before you lost capacity completely. What was I asking about in the video? She blinks. What? In the video Mark showed you. What was I asking him to repeat? I don't remember. Does it matter? Context always matters. When you mediated your divorce in this room, you remember what your ex's lawyer tried to do? He showed the judge a recording of you yelling at your daughter. Made you sound unstable. I made him play the full recording. Turned out your daughter had just told you she was being bullied at school, and you were yelling at the principal on the phone, not at her. Context. Karen's face goes pale. Mark was terrified. Terrified people don't lie exactly. They curate. They select the evidence that confirms what they already believe. I look at Mark now directly. Your turn. Tell them the truth. His voice is barely there, cracked and worn. The video was from September. You were asking me to repeat a recipe because the music was too loud. You wanted to write it down. That's all it was. He stops, swallows. But I watched it later, and all I could see was you asking me to repeat things. The stroke was in May. Your dad's dementia started with repetition. Your mom's too. I kept thinking, this is how it begins. So you decided. I decided to protect you before it got worse. Before you couldn't make decisions anymore. Before you got scared and confused. Before I had to watch you disappear like they did. His hands are shaking. I watched your parents forget you. I can't watch you forget yourself. I can't do it again. The room is quiet except for the coffee maker gurgling in the corner. I stand, walk to the whiteboard, pick up a marker. My left hand holds the board steady while my right writes. The same hand that failed me 6 months ago that Mark watched struggle to hold a pen. It works fine now. I write 4 questions. What am I currently unable to do? What decisions have I made poorly in the last 6 months? What evidence exists of cognitive decline? Who decided I needed saving? One by one, I say, capping the marker. Answer them. Todd goes first, quiet and careful. You haven't been unable to do anything that I've seen. You approved the new HVAC for Miguel's place. You negotiated the lease extension for the bookstore. You're still taking clients. Karen adds, voice tight. You mediated the Henderson custody case in August. Ruth Henderson told me you were brilliant, that you helped her see options she'd never considered. Mark says nothing. I wait. The decisions, I prompt. What have I done poorly? Silence stretches. Karen finally says, I can't think of anything, but that doesn't mean what? That I'm hiding it well? That I'm in denial? My voice stays level. The evidence question. What exists? Todd looks at Mark. Mark looks at the floor. The video, Mark says. The times you write things down. You check the locks twice before bed now. You didn't used to do that. I check the locks twice because last year someone broke into the nail salon at the plaza, and I felt responsible for not having better security. I write things down because I manage a mediation practice, a property, and a life. I've always written things down. I pause. You're mistaking caution for decline. You're mistaking trauma response for disease. I point to the last question on the board. Who decided I needed saving? No one answers. The coffee maker beeps. I pour 4 cups, add cream and sugar the way each of them likes it without asking. I hand them out, and the small act of remembering their preferences is its own answer. When I sit back down, I erase the 4 questions. Write 1 word in their place. Truth. Here it is, I say. I might decline someday. My genetics aren't kind. My parents both had early onset dementia. I know the statistics, the risk factors, the timeline, but I'm not declining now. I look at each of them. And when that day comes, if it comes, I'll tell you. We'll make plans together. We'll handle it together. But you don't get to decide I'm gone before I leave. Mark reaches for my hand. I let him take it, but I don't squeeze back. His palm is clammy, desperate. I need time, I tell him, and I say it gently because his fear is real even if what he did with it was wrong. You stole months from me. You plotted while I was living my life, working, managing the property you claimed I couldn't handle. You made me the subject of meetings I wasn't invited to. You forged my signature. I know. His voice breaks. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry isn't enough yet, but it's a start. I pull my hand back, fold it with my other hand in my lap. Here's what happens now. The sale stops. I resume full ownership responsibilities for the plaza. Karen, Todd, you're still involved, but we're redoing the operating agreement with clear protocols. Everything gets voted on. Unanimous decisions only. They both nod. We all attend family therapy. Non-negotiable. Every week until the therapist says we're done. I look at Mark. And you move into the guest room until I decide otherwise. His face crumples, but he nods. Okay, anything. Whatever you need. What I need is space to figure out if I can trust you again. What I need is for you to understand that loving someone doesn't mean erasing them. Karen wipes her eyes with the back of her hand, mascara smearing. I really thought we were helping. I thought you'd be relieved that someone was taking care of things. You thought you were helping Mark, I correct. You saw his fear and you believed it instead of checking with me? That's what hurts. You all chose his narrative over my presence. Todd speaks up, his voice stronger now. How do we fix it? You start seeing me. Not who you're afraid I'll become, not who Mark told you I was. Me. The person sitting here right now, running a business, managing property, drinking coffee that I made because I remembered you take 2 sugars, Todd, and Karen takes cream but no sugar, and Mark drinks it black. They're all staring at their cups like they've never seen them before. Small things, I say. They add up. You missed them because you were looking for evidence of what you feared instead of what was actually happening? The conversation continues for another hour. We talk about the video. Mark pulls it up on his phone and we watch it together. I'm in the kitchen, music playing from the speaker, asking him to repeat the ingredient measurements for a cake I was trying to write down for a client whose daughter's birthday was coming up. I'm not confused. I'm just trying to hear over the noise. Context, we talk about the forgotten birthday accusation. Karen admits she'd mixed up Todd's birthday with their cousin Daniel's birthday. Both in August, and she'd been the one who forgot, not me. We talk about my note-taking, my lock-checking, my need to write everything down. I show them my planner, the same system I've used for 10 years. Color-coded, detailed, functional. Not the desperate scrawling of someone losing their grip on reality. Just the organized method of someone managing multiple responsibilities. I'm the same person I was before the stroke, I tell them. I was scared after it happened. My hand didn't work right, and I thought maybe this was the beginning of what happened to Mom and Dad. But I healed. I did the work. I got better. I look at Mark. You never let yourself believe I got better. You stayed in the fear. He nods, miserable. I stayed in the fear. By the time we finish, it's past noon. Karen hugs me before she leaves, and this time I hug her back. Not long, not forgiveness yet, but acknowledgement. Todd lingers, asks if he can come by next week to learn the property management software. Wants to understand what I actually do, see what he missed. Yeah, I tell him. Tuesday afternoon. Mark is the last to leave. He stands in the doorway of the office, car keys in his hand. I meant it, he says. Whatever you need. However long it takes. I know you did. That's what makes it complicated. He leaves and I'm alone in the office with 4 empty coffee cups and a whiteboard that says truth. I don't erase it. Just sit in the circle of chairs for a while, feeling the shape of what just happened. My phone buzzes. Text from Lena. How'd it go? Me. No blood, some tears. Honest conversation. Lena. That's a win in family law. Me. It's a start. I pour the last of the coffee, sit at my desk, and open my laptop. There's work to do. The Henderson case needs follow-up. The operating agreement for the plaza needs drafting. Therapy appointments need scheduling. Normal work. The kind you do when you're capable, present, and done being erased. 3 weeks pass before the therapy starts. I spend them working, sleeping in my own bed, while Mark stays in the guest room and renegotiating the terms of my life. Lena handles the legal side, formal withdrawal of the property sale, letters to Hartley Real Estate Group demanding return of all forged documents, a new operating agreement for the plaza that requires all 3 siblings' signatures on anything above $5,000. Todd signs immediately. Karen takes 4 days, then signs with a note. I'm sorry I didn't ask. I frame the note. Not to display, just to keep. Evidence that someone heard me. The first therapy session happens on a Thursday afternoon in an office that smells like lavender and old books. Dr. Sarah has gray hair and a long braid, and the kind of steady gaze that makes you feel seen without feeling exposed. Mark and I sit on a couch together, not touching, a careful 6 inches between us, and she sits across from us in a chair that's probably ergonomic, but looks like someone's grandmother owned it first. Tell me why you're here, she says, and she's looking at Mark. He stumbles through it, the stroke, the fear, the memories of my parents' decline. His mother's early onset Alzheimer's, a detail I didn't know mattered this much until he says it. She was 58 when she forgot my name, he says, voice cracking. Same age my wife is now. I watched my father try to hold on to her while she slipped away. He never recovered. Died 6 months after we moved her into memory care. Dr. Sarah nods slowly. And you saw the stroke as the beginning. I saw it as a warning, a preview. He looks at me, then away. I thought if I could control everything before it got worse, I could spare her the confusion. Spare myself the... He stops. The helplessness, Dr. Sarah finishes. Yes. She turns to me. What do you want from these sessions? I want to understand if I can trust him again. and I want him to understand what he took from me. I keep my voice even. He didn't just plan a property sale. He rewrote my reality. He told people I was declining when I wasn't. He made me the subject of conversations about my own incompetence. He stole my agency and called it love. And yet you're here, not divorced. Dr. Sarah's tone is curious, not judgmental, because I understand the fear. I've felt it myself. Every time I can't remember where I put my keys, every time I lose my train of thought. I wonder if this is it, the beginning. I look at Mark, but I don't let that fear decide my future. He did. Dr. Sarah gives us homework. Mark has to list 3 things I did independently each week. I have to list 3 fears I have about the future. We read them aloud at the next session. Mark's first list: negotiated a lease dispute between the yoga studio and the tenant below them. Drove to the city for a conference on restorative justice practices. Cooked dinner for us both and remembered I'm allergic to shellfish. That last one gets me. You thought I'd forget my own allergies? He looks stricken. I don't know what I thought. I'm trying to see what's actually happening instead of what I'm afraid will happen. My fear list is shorter, harder to say out loud. That I will decline like my parents did. That Mark will never see me clearly again. That I'll spend the rest of my life proving I'm competent instead of just living. Dr. Sarah asks Mark, what would it mean to trust your partner's self-awareness? He struggles with this, fingers knotting together. What if she can't see it happening? What if she's in denial and I'm the only one who notices? What if you can't see her clearly because you're looking through fear? Dr. Sarah's voice is kind but firm. What if your terror is creating the very thing you're afraid of? Not her decline, but her disappearance from your life. He doesn't have an answer for that. Neither do I, not yet. I keep working. The Ridgecrest Plaza needs me, and I need it. Need the proof that I'm still the person who manages things, fixes things, negotiates solutions. Miguel's daughter has her quinceañera and invites me. I go, watch her dance in the taqueria, surrounded by family, and Miguel's wife thanks me for approving the floor reinforcement that made it possible to have the party there. You always take care of us, she says. The bookstore owner, an older woman named Diane, asks me to help negotiate better terms with her distributor. We spend an afternoon on the phone together, me asking questions and making notes while she explains margins and return policies. By the end, she has a contract that saves her $3,000 a year. She brings me a book as thanks, a novel about a woman who rebuilds her life after a betrayal. I don't tell her how precisely she's chosen. The yoga instructor, whose name is Renee, mentions that my advice from 6 months ago helped her set boundaries with a student who was monopolizing her time. You told me that kindness doesn't require self-erasure, she says. I've been thinking about that a lot. I have too, just in a different context. Karen visits my office on a Saturday, no agenda, no crisis. We drink coffee and don't talk about the meeting or the sale or the betrayal. She tells me about her job. She's managing a small marketing firm now and asks if I'd be willing to mediate a conflict between 2 of her employees who used to be friends. I trust your judgment, she says, and it's the first time in months I've believed her. I say yes. Do the mediation. It goes well. Afterward, Karen takes me to lunch and we talk about Mom, about the last good year before the dementia took hold. I'm terrified of ending up like her, Karen admits. Every time I forget something small, I panic. Maybe that's why I believed Mark so easily, because I'm already looking for signs in myself. Being afraid doesn't make it true, I tell her, and it doesn't give us permission to erase each other. She nods, wipes her eyes with her napkin. I'm trying to see you, the actual you, not the ghost I'm afraid you'll become. It's not forgiveness yet, but it's something. Todd emails me a formal apology letter, handwritten and scanned. 3 pages of him working through what he did wrong, why he trusted Mark's word over his own observations, how he wants to learn the property management systems the way our father taught me. I write back, Tuesday afternoons, bring coffee. He shows up the next Tuesday with 2 lattes and a notebook. I teach him the tenant database, the maintenance tracking spreadsheet, the lease renewal calendar. He takes notes like a student, asks good questions. You make it look easy, he says. It's not easy, it's just practice and paying attention. We work together for 3 hours. At the end, he says, Mark told me you couldn't handle this anymore, but you're better at it than I've ever been at anything. Mark told you a story that made sense to him. It wasn't true, but it was coherent. That's dangerous. Yeah, Todd says quietly. I see that now. The second therapy session happens on a rainy Thursday. Mark's homework list is longer this time. Mediated workplace conflict for Karen's firm. Managed quarterly plaza inspection with city officials. Taught Todd the property systems. Made doctor's appointment for herself without being reminded. Remembered our anniversary next week and bought a card. That last one surprises me. Our anniversary's in 6 days and I'd forgotten. Or not forgotten, just hadn't prioritized it given everything else. Dr. Sarah notices my reaction. How does it feel that he remembered and you didn't? Ironic, I say. Then, more honestly, scary. Like maybe he was right to be worried. Or, Dr. Sarah says, like you've been managing a betrayal, a property dispute, family therapy, your mediation practice, and the emotional labor of teaching your siblings to see you clearly, and in the middle of all that you didn't prioritize a calendar date. Which one sounds more likely? I laugh, short and surprised. The second one. Mark looks at me. I don't think you're declining. Not anymore. I see you now. I see what you're doing, how you're managing everything. I was wrong. You were terrified, I correct, and you acted from that terror. But wrong, yes. We talk about his mother. The gaps. In this story, I never knew. How she forgot his name at 58 but forgot her own name at 60. How she'd wander the house at night looking for her childhood bedroom. How his father tried to care for her at home until she didn't recognize him anymore and he found her trying to leave, convinced he was a stranger who'd kidnapped her. I was 29, Mark says. I watched my father break. He was never the same after she went into care. I swore I'd never let myself get to that point, never let someone I loved deteriorate while I stood helpless. He looks at his hands. So when you had the stroke, I decided to act first. Control it before it controlled me. But I'm not your mother, I say gently. And you're not your father. You get to write a different story. I don't know how. You start by asking instead of assuming. You start by trusting me to know myself. Dr. Sarah gives us new homework. Mark has to ask me every day, what do you need? Not what can I do for you, not let me handle this. Just, what do you need? And he has to accept my answer even if it's nothing or space or for you to trust me. I have to tell him one true thing every day. About my fears, my capacity, my actual state of being. Not to prove anything, just to practice honesty in a relationship that's been poisoned by assumption. The third session is harder. We talk about the forged signature, the meetings behind my back, the nursing home brochures. Mark cries, really cries, not the quiet leaking of tears, but the full body shake of someone confronting what they've done. I erased you, he says. I loved you and I erased you. Yes, I tell him. Because it's true and he needs to hear it. Dr. Sarah asks if I've decided anything about the future of the marriage. I haven't. Some days I think I can rebuild this. Some days I think the foundation is too cracked. I'm giving it time, I say. That's fair, Dr. Sarah says. Healing doesn't happen on a schedule. Mark asks if he can move back into our bedroom. I say no, not yet. He nods, accepts it. This is progress, him accepting boundaries without arguing, without trying to convince me I'm wrong about what I need. On our anniversary, Mark gives me the card, and inside he's written, I'm sorry I forgot to see you. I'm learning. It's not poetry, but it's honest. I give him a card, too, bought the day before. Inside I write, I'm still deciding. But thank you for trying. We don't go to dinner, don't celebrate. Just acknowledge the day and move forward. It's enough for now. The fourth session introduces the concept Dr. Sarah calls dignity of risk, the right to make decisions even when others fear the outcome. It's the tension in every caregiving relationship, she explains, between protection and autonomy. The person who loves you wants to keep you safe, but safety without agency isn't living. It's existing. Mark practices saying it. What do you need? Every morning, every evening. Sometimes I say coffee. Sometimes I say silence. Once I say, for you to stop watching me like I'm about to break. He nods, stops hovering, gives me room. I practice telling true things. I'm afraid I'll decline young like my parents did. I'm angry at you, and I don't know if that will fade. I had a moment today where I couldn't remember a client's name and I panicked for 10 minutes until it came back. I'm tired of proving I'm competent. He listens. Doesn't try to fix, doesn't reassure me it won't happen. Just listens. 2 months after the meeting in my office, I have a moment of genuine forgetfulness. I'm unloading groceries, phone tucked between ear and shoulder while talking to Diane about a distributor problem, and I put my keys in the freezer. Don't realize it until 20 minutes later when I'm trying to leave for a mediation session and can't find them anywhere. I search the counter, my bag, the table by the door. Nothing. My heart starts racing, not the normal frustration of misplaced keys, but something deeper, colder. The fear I've been living with since the stroke, the one I've learned to manage but never truly banish. This is it, I think. This is how it starts. Mark finds me in the kitchen tearing through drawers. What's wrong? My keys. I can't find my keys. My voice is tight, controlled, but I can hear the edge of panic underneath. He doesn't move to help search. Doesn't take over. Just asks, "Where did you have them last?" I don't know. That's the problem. I don't remember. Were you doing something else when you came in? I stop, breathe, think. Groceries? I was on the phone with Diane, carrying bags, and I turn to the refrigerator, open the freezer, and there they are. Sitting on top of a bag of frozen peas, I stand there staring at them, keys cold in my hand. Mark waits. I put them in the freezer, I say finally. Yeah. Happens. His voice is calm. I found my phone in the fridge last month. You were at a mediation. I'd been listening to a podcast while making lunch. I look at him. That's different. Is it? I'm 58. My parents. We're distracted humans who sometimes put things in weird places before they got sick. He's careful, not dismissive. This doesn't mean what you're afraid it means. I want to argue, want to catastrophize, prove this is significant. But the truth sits between us. I was distracted, juggling tasks, and I put my keys somewhere absurd. Normal human error, not neurological decline. I need to tell you something, I say. I panicked. For a minute, I was convinced this was the beginning. I know, I could see it in your face. And you didn't try to fix it. You told me not to. You told me to trust you to know the difference. He holds my gaze. So I'm trusting you. Is this the beginning? I think about it honestly. The texture of the fear versus the reality of the moment. No, I was distracted. That's all. Okay, then it's just keys in a freezer. I tell Dr. Sarah about it at our next session. She smiles. How? Did it feel to tell Mark right away? Terrifying. Like I was handing him evidence he could use against me. But he didn't. No, he didn't. Mark speaks up. I wanted to. For a second, I wanted to say, see, this is what I was worried about. But then I remembered what you said. He looks at Dr. Sarah. About dignity of risk, about trusting her self-awareness. And I realized if I turned one distracted moment into proof of decline, I'd be doing the same thing I did before. That's growth, Dr. Sarah says. The family therapy sessions continue, sometimes just Mark and me, sometimes with Karen and Todd. We're learning a new language, one where asking is more important than assuming. Todd brings his girlfriend to one session, a quiet woman named Amy who works in environmental science. I wanted her to understand what happened, Todd says, so she knows why I'm weird about checking in instead of just handling things. Karen talks about her own fear of decline, how she started seeing a therapist individually to work through watching our parents die. I projected my terror onto you, she tells me. Saw what I was afraid I'd become instead of who you actually are. We all did, Todd adds quietly. The operating agreement for the plaza gets finalized. All three of us sign it in front of a notary, and afterward we go to Miguel's taqueria to celebrate. He brings out fresh guacamole and tells us about his daughter's quinceañera, how she's still talking about dancing in the restaurant. Best party of her life, he says. Thank you for making it possible. Todd looks at me. You approved the floor reinforcement, didn't you? 4 months ago, Miguel sent the request, I got the engineer's assessment, we split the cost with the insurance company. While Mark was telling us you couldn't handle decisions, Karen says, not quite a question. While Mark was telling you a story he believed? Yes. We eat in silence for a minute. Then Todd raises his beer, to asking instead of assuming. We drink to that. Work continues. I take on a new case, a neighborhood dispute about a community garden where 3 families have been feuding for 2 years about plot assignments. It's messy, emotional, full of old grudges disguised as present conflicts. I spend 4 sessions helping them see each other, hear each other, find common ground. By the end, they've redesigned the entire garden layout, and 2 of the families are planning a joint harvest party. One of the women, a retired teacher named Judith, stops me after the final session. "You have a gift for this," she says, "for helping people see past their own fear." "I'm learning," I tell her. "Every day I'm learning." Mark and I attend a stroke support group together, his idea, which surprises me. We sit in a church basement on folding chairs, drinking bad coffee and listening to other people's stories. A man in his 60s talks about his wife's stroke 3 years ago, how he became obsessed with preventing another one, monitored her diet, her exercise, her stress levels. "I was trying to control the uncontrollable," he says, "and she finally told me I was suffocating her, that she'd rather risk another stroke than live in my fear." Mark reaches for my hand during that story. I let him hold it. A younger woman talks about her stroke at 35, how her family treated her like she was broken even after full recovery. "They still do it," she says. "Cut my food without asking, finish my sentences. My mom calls every day to make sure I took my pills. I moved to a different state and they act like it's proof I can't make good decisions." I see myself in her story, see what could have happened if I hadn't caught the property sale in time, hadn't walked into that nursing home meeting with a lawyer. I would have disappeared into other people's care, their fear, their need to fix something that wasn't broken. After the meeting, Mark and I sit in the car in the parking lot. He doesn't start the engine. "I heard myself in that guy's story," he says, "the one trying to control everything." "I know. I'm sorry I made your stroke about me. It was about both of us. You lived through it too, but you forgot to ask what I needed. You decided for me." He nods, jaw tight. "I won't do that again." "You might. Fear is loud. It makes us forget things we know." I look at him. "But if you do, I'll tell you. And you have to listen." "I will. I promise I will." It's not forgiveness yet, but it's something close to trust beginning to rebuild, careful and slow. The seasons change. Fall arrives with cooler air and earlier darkness. I'm working in my office one evening when Mark appears in the doorway. He's holding 2 mugs of tea. "Can I come in?" I gesture to the chair across from my desk. He sits, slides 1 mug toward me. "What do you need?" he asks. It's become our ritual, this question. Sometimes I answer with tasks or space or silence. Tonight I answer differently. I need to know if you can see me as I am, not as who I might become, not as your mother or my parents, just me, right now, in this moment. He's quiet for a long time, drinks his tea, sets the mug down carefully. I'm trying. Some days I do. Some days the fear comes back and I catch myself watching you for signs, waiting for you to falter. He meets my eyes. But I'm learning to separate the fear from the reality, to trust you when you say you're okay, to ask instead of assume. That's all I need, the trying. Is it enough? For you to come back? To let me back into our room, our life, our marriage? I don't answer right away. I've been living with this question for 2 months, turning it over in the quiet moments. Can I trust him again? Can I forgive what he did? Can I rebuild a life with someone who tried to erase me out of love? I don't know yet, I tell him honestly. Some days I think yes. Some days I think the damage is too deep. But I'm still here, still trying. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. His voice breaks slightly. Whatever you decide, whenever you decide it, I'll accept it. You have all the power here, as it should be. The irony isn't lost on either of us. Him giving me power by acknowledging I always had it, that he was the one who tried to take it away. 3 months after the meeting in my office, Dr. Sarah asks us to do an exercise. We're supposed to write letters to each other. Not about the betrayal or the fear or the anger, about the future we want. Mark writes first, reads his letter in a session where the rain drums against the windows and the office smells like the peppermint tea Dr. Sarah keeps for difficult conversations. I want a future where I ask you every morning what you need and mean it, where I trust your answer even when it scares me. I want to grow old with you, actually old, not the version I've been terrified of, And I want to hold your hand in the garden we keep talking about planting and never getting around to. I want to apologize less and listen more. I want to be your partner again, not your warden. I want you to forgive me, but I understand if you can't. I want to earn back what I threw away. I want to see you clearly for the rest of my life. He folds the letter carefully when he's done, hands shaking. I read mine next, slower, choosing each word deliberately. I want a future where I'm not constantly proving I'm competent, where I can forget where I put my keys without panicking, where I can ask you to repeat something without seeing fear flash in your eyes. I want to trust you again the way I used to, before the stroke, before the fear. I want to build something new with you, not try to resurrect what died when you forged my signature. I want to stop being angry. I want to plant that garden and argue about where the tomatoes should go. I want to believe that love doesn't have to mean control. I want to forgive you, and I'm trying, and I'm not there yet, but I want to be. I want us both to be braver than our fear. Dr. Sarah lets the silence sit after I finish. Then she asks, "What do you both hear in these letters?" "Hope," Mark says. "Possibility," I add, "but not certainty." "Certainty is overrated," Dr. Sarah says. "Possibility is where healing lives." Karen sends me a text one random Wednesday. "Mom would be proud of you for standing up for yourself, for not letting us erase you." I stare at it for 10 minutes before responding. She'd be proud of you too, for learning to see it. Karen, some days I'm not sure I do. Me, keep trying. That's all any of us can do. Todd stops by the office on a Saturday with Amy. They want advice about buying a house together, navigating the financial decisions, the commitment. I spend an hour asking them questions, helping them articulate what they each need, what they fear, where they might compromise. "You're really good at this," Amy says afterward, seeing the patterns people can't see in themselves. "I have good teachers," I tell her. "Every failed negotiation, every family that almost destroyed itself, they all taught me something." Todd walks me to my car afterward. I told Amy everything, about the property sale, the nursing home meeting, all of it. How did she react? She asked why I didn't verify Mark's story with you directly, why I trusted his fear over your presence. He kicks at a pebble. I didn't have a good answer. The answer is that fear is contagious, and Mark was convincing, and you loved me enough to want to protect me, even if the protection was misguided. I should have asked you. Yes, you should have. But you're asking now. That matters. 4 months after everything, Mark asks if he can take me to dinner. Not for our anniversary or a special occasion, just dinner. We go to a small Italian place we used to love before the stroke, before the fear rewrote our story. The server remembers us, asks where we've been. Life got complicated, I tell her. We're working on simplifying it. Over pasta, Mark tells me about his week. Normal things, a problem at work, a book he's reading, a podcast that made him think of me. I tell him about a difficult mediation, about Diane's latest distributor drama, about the plans to update the plaza's landscaping in the spring. We talk like people who know each other, like partners, not like warden and prisoner, not like caretaker and patient, just two people sharing a meal and a conversation. Near the end, Mark asks quietly, "Can I come home? Not to our room necessarily, but can I stop living in the guest room like I'm a stranger?" I think about it. The guest room has become a symbol. His exile, my boundary, the space I needed to figure out what I wanted. But symbols can become prisons too. Not yet, I say. But soon. Maybe. He nods, accepts it without argument. Thank you for considering it. We drive home separately, another boundary I haven't released. But when we get there, I don't go straight to bed. We sit in the living room and watch a documentary about community gardens in Detroit, and his shoulder is warm against mine on the couch, and for the first time in months, it doesn't feel like betrayal to let myself lean into that warmth. The conference room at Spring Valley Assisted Living sits empty now. I know because I drove past it last week, curious about what happened to Gloria and her rehearsed warmth. The facility has new management, a new sign, a whole new identity. The memory care wing is being renovated. I don't know if that's because of the investigation I mentioned or just the natural churn of the healthcare industry. I don't go inside. Don't need to. That room and what almost happened there are part of my story now, but they don't define it. What defines it is the circle of 4 chairs in my office, still arranged from our family meeting. I haven't moved them. Sometimes I use them for mediations, sometimes they just sit empty, a reminder of the day we all learned to ask instead of assume. The whiteboard still holds Mark's handwriting from 2 weeks ago. Trust. I haven't erased it. Some mornings I add questions underneath in my own hand. What do you need today? What are you afraid of? What truth haven't we said yet? The answers change daily. Mark needs patience while he learns to live outside his fear. Karen needs reassurance that seeing my competence doesn't mean ignoring her own terror. Todd needs structure and clear expectations. I need space, time, proof that the change is real and lasting. What we're all afraid of varies. Decline, loss, loneliness, repetition of our parents' story. But we're learning to name the fears instead of letting them make our decisions. The truths we haven't said get smaller each week. Last session, Mark admitted he sometimes resents the therapy, wants to skip past the hard work to the part where we're okay again. I admitted I sometimes use the guest room boundary as punishment, not just protection. Karen admitted she's relieved she's not the primary caregiver anymore, that she never wanted that responsibility. Todd admitted he's angry at Mark for putting us all through this, for making him complicit in erasing his own sister. Dr. Sarah says these admissions are progress. The ugly truths, the uncomfortable ones, they're the foundation of something real. I'm in my office on a Sunday morning, early, before anyone else is awake. The plaza needs new gutters on the bookstore, and I'm reviewing estimates from 3 contractors. My left hand holds the papers steady while my right makes notes. The hand that failed me after the stroke works perfectly now. Muscle memory restored, function returned. But I know it might fail again someday. Genetics aren't guarantees, but they're strong suggestions. My parents both declined young. I might too. The stroke might have been a warning or just an isolated event. There's no way to know. What I know is this. If decline comes, I'll face it honestly. I'll tell Mark, tell my siblings, tell my clients. We'll make plans together. I'll advocate for myself as long as I can, and when I can't anymore, I'll trust that the boundaries I'm setting now will protect me then. But that day isn't today. Today I'm reviewing contractor estimates, planning spring landscaping, preparing for a mediation on Tuesday. Today I'm capable, present, functional. Today I'm seen. Mark appears in the doorway with coffee, the good kind from the French press. He doesn't ask if he can come in, just waits for permission. I gesture to the chair across from my desk. He sits, slides the coffee toward me. What do you need? He asks. Our morning ritual, I think about it, really think. I need to plant that garden we keep talking about, the one with the tomatoes we'll argue about. Something shifts in his face. Hope, maybe. Or relief. Okay, when? Next weekend, if it doesn't rain. I'll get the soil and stakes ready. And Mark? Yeah? You can move back into our room, not today, but next week, after we plant. The garden. His eyes get bright. He doesn't cry, but it's close. Are you sure? No, but I'm willing to try. That's the best I can offer. It's everything, he says. It's more than I deserve. Maybe. We'll figure it out as we go. We sit there in the early morning quiet, drinking coffee, not talking. Outside the window, birds are starting their morning calls. Inside the office, the whiteboard holds its questions, waiting for new answers. The conference room at Spring Valley is empty, and I'm not. My siblings see me clearly now, or they're trying to, which amounts to the same thing. Mark asks instead of assumes, listens instead of controls, practices trust like it's a muscle he's rebuilding. And when I walk into my office now, when I enter that space where we all fell apart and started reassembling ourselves, no one freezes. No one assumes. They wait for me to speak first, to choose the chair, to begin. It's not forgiveness yet. Not entirely, but it's something closer to sight. Something like understanding. Something that might, given time and honesty and courage, become the foundation of a new story. One where I'm not erased, where fear doesn't make our decisions, where love means seeing someone clearly, even when, especially when, it would be easier to look away. The garden will have tomatoes. We'll argue about placement. Mark will worry I'm overexerting myself, and I'll tell him I'm fine, and he'll have to trust that I know my own body, my own limits, my own truth. We'll plant seeds and wait for them to grow. Some will flourish, some will fail. That's the dignity of risk. That's the work of living. And every morning we'll ask the question that changes everything. What do you need? The answer will vary. The asking won't. And that small revolutionary act of seeing each other is where healing lives.